Welcome, everyone. Thanks for my clunky start. This is our Tuesday get-together. Call it your Tuesday coffee talk with Dr. D. That means we're going to have to drink coffee. I want to do a little version of the GeneSNP 101 and 201. Now, of course, when we do the large event, it takes all day and we talk about TLS Select. We talk about GeneSNP. Today, what I want to do is do a little bit of that workshop with you so you can see the value of getting to a bigger training, but also so that you can start today working with a virtual solution for GeneSNP. Yep, you heard me. GeneSNP still works. We're still able to send you out the kit. You can go ahead and follow virtual tools on your back office. You have access to the virtual instructions. You get the kit at the office. At home at this point, you're going to go ahead and sign that requisition and send it off to your patients with the virtual instructions that are on downloads. They'll go ahead and walk through those steps, send it into the laboratory, and let you know that they've sent it in so that you can follow up with the lab. But the lab is fully functional, and I want you to take advantage of the program that is out there today that allows us to send in multiple SNPs at one time, receive them in the lab, and be able to take advantage of some lab specials. To do that, you've got to know what to do when the results come back. And that's what we're going to do now. My name is Dr. Deidre Mason. I am the Director of nutraMetrix and Clinical Education. As a naturopathic physician, a graduate of National University of Natural Medicine, I've been working with hormones, prescriptions, botanical remedies, and nutrigenomic or personalized nutrition for the better part of 2 decades. So while genomics has definitely changed, the root is all in personalized nutrition, and that's a little bit about what we're going to talk about today. To do this successfully, whether we're doing it in a workshop right now or we're doing it in a larger workshop through the GeneSNP TLS Select 101, 201, we need to understand what we're going to get out of today. What does your wellness program look like? It may be different for you than it is for me. We need to think about our patient. We need to think about the demographic of our patient. What are their chief concerns? And what is it that they're looking for when it comes to personalized nutrition? We need to think about how are we going to implement a wellness program, in particular, a genomic program in the practice. Is this going to be fully virtual? Are we going to group it with other global visits? Are we going to attach it to an anti-aging program, a weight management program, a fertility program, a mental emotional well-being or eating program? What is the role of personalized nutrition in your practice? And what is the role of personalized nutrition for your patient? To answer these questions, we have to figure out your unique factors, your quote unquote X factor, that thing that is your multiplier, the thing that is going to help this exponentially grow for you. And understand that additional data points. GeneSNP offers 48 new data points for you, but how are you going to blend those in with other information that you have through lab work and through the patient history? So when we talk about the implementation discussion, this is really where the rubber meets the road and where you want to get by the end of your GeneSNP TLS Select 101 and 201. How will your promotion strategy support your goals, right? What is the objective and how are we going to get there, right? We need to know how to move the needle. We want to make sure that you're doing your research, proper implementation in the practice, whether we're just talking about a workshop today or we're moving past today's workshop and getting you more training, engaged in maybe our 12-week GeneSNP learning management system. You're going to have to do your research. I recommend if you have a hard time sleeping, you download my 144-page report and read that before bed. Learn about the SNPs. Understand and create an avatar in your head for each one of the polymorphisms. That way, when someone says MTHFR TT, you have a picture in your head of what that genomic personality looks like. When someone says COMT, you know that's the warrior, the impetuous one, the one that needs to be reined in, right? But also has methylation concerns. You need to do your research and really fall in love with the avatars that are created through that report. Attend live and online trainings just like now, but what we're going to do is then take you to the next step. We're going to get you to use 10 gene SNPs in a 90-day period, help you understand how to manipulate the report so it's customized to your practice and your patient's needs. If you want to do this fast or slow, it's up to you, but we did create the ability to download and binge with a 12-week gene SNP strategy program. Ultimately, what we're looking to do is help identify your wow factor, your X factor, your multiplier, so that we're able to get you started. One of the best places to get started is learning a little bit more about GeneSNP through genesnp.com. It is your superhero. It is your back pocket solution. If you don't have time to talk to your patients about GeneSNP, send them to genesnp.com to learn a little bit more about it. If you want to have bite-sized digestible pieces on GeneSNP, genesnp.com is a great place to start. This is where it all begins, though. The human genome is 99.9% identical. It is, in fact, a very small percentage of changes between us that dictate metabolism leading to heart disease, type 2 diabetes, mental emotional concerns, excess weight, and why we carry excess weight. When all is said and done, your genetic blueprint can give you the secret to many of these issues. What we do know is that there is no such thing as one size fits all anymore. You should know as a practitioner, there are things called functional SNPs and non-functional SNPs. There's a reason why there's been a lot of static in the personal nutrition marketplace, because some of these polymorphisms, they don't go anywhere, right? Some of them may be very close to a promoter gene or a functional SNP, but they simply bear no fruit. We don't really get anything by manipulating them. So you want to know that looking at the entire data set, all that raw data, much of those genetic polymorphisms don't go anywhere. In fact, we only know what about 2% of the human genome does, and it's even less that dictate or give us information about functional polymorphisms, or where diet, sleep, stress, or fitness can change the way that gene behaves. But these are the functional SNPs. What I want you to know is that there are enough of them to make a meaningful change in your patient's life. Let's understand some of the phrasing. Nutrigenomics. This is simply the study of genes, their function, and their interaction with each other and the environment. That is both the internal environment as well as the external environment. Epigenetics is the interaction between personalized genes and what you do. What I like to say are those external stressors that you add to the body, right? So what that means is that your genetic code was written in a way that it would either perform or perform to a lesser degree. But the more pressure you put on it with your lifestyle factors, those are the epigenetic expression, right? So this is the difference between why someone can be a smoker and not have disease, and someone can be a runner and end up with cardiovascular health concerns. It's all written in their genetic code and what we know about those external stressors. So when we think about personalized nutrition, we want to think of GeneSNP as a collection of data points that you didn't have before. No different than establishing or evaluating the area under the curve for testosterone, where we start to see testosterone levels change in men as they age. And we also see it change based on their genetic background or their ethnic background. We see changes in production of lean muscle mass. We know this is sarcopenia. And while there is a component of age related to that, there is also a component of genomics or genes and diet that give us some information about that area under the curve. The idea here is that when we have a patient that is euthyroid, but they still feel crummy, maybe the answer is found in their leptin gene or their adiponectin genes. You need to know what makes GeneSNP DNA analysis different. So what we're looking to do is give you a full-fledged report that allows you to understand the mechanism of action behind each one of the SNPs so that you can, one, decide if this is meaningful for you and your patient. Does this sound like something that needs to be evaluated or explored further with your patient? It coordinates with the weight management program. Again, anything that we find in lab work or in GeneSNP DNA analysis needs to be actionable in some way. And so we need to have that next thing that our patients are doing. For some of us, we're simply getting them started with a foundation bundle of supplementation based on their genetic results. For some, we're moving them into a weight management program like TLS Select. For others, we're putting them on a sleep hygiene or meditative breathing or deep breathing or rhythmic breathing programs, simply because their GeneSNP dictated the next step. But you should let your patients know there is a next step, and the answer is in their genetic blueprint. We can also offer guidance on supplementation. This is a big value to the patient, especially the patient that wants to maximize their health. Why did I choose the patient that wants to maximize their health? They're willing to do a little bit more to identify how to make these recommendations more meaningful, right? Produce something in their lives. The individual that is looking to spend less money on supplementation, they're a good GeneSNP candidate as long as they're willing to spend money on GeneSNP to get that answer. And that's why in today's workshop, we're going to talk about how getting started with the gut or a foundation bundle is enough for some of your patients. One of the huge benefits of working with GeneSNP DNA analysis is that the results go to the practice, not the patient. Too many of my colleagues and yours have concerns with lab results that go straight to the patient, cutting off the physician or the practitioner being able to work with that patient to change gene environment or to work with them through a weight management program or another program. Often when patients get the results, not only do they feel like they can go it alone, they got this, right? And you're like me, you want an empowered patient. But at the end of the day, the physician needs to be there, the practitioner needs to be there to contextualize those results. It's important because as many of our patients that believe like they got this, we have patients that are very concerned with what they read because they cannot read it in context, and they need us as their practitioner to help them do that. I'll just put a little bit more emphasis on that because there are gene polymorphisms that are related to diabetes, poor brain aging. It's really important that we're there to let our patients know that GeneSNP is not a diagnostic test. It's important for us to also understand that the way GeneSNP works is that you need to get those results from the lab to create the customized or personalized report. If we just go on the lab report, it's also not going to have enough information to really add that value. And that's an important kind of identity need for our practices. We need to make sure that we are putting our best foot forward, and our best foot is being able to contextualize the information that they get, give them a customized and personalized report from us, not the laboratory. In addition to that, we offer you full transparency on the gene polymorphisms. Many competitors let you know that you have an FTO, a fat mass gene, but they don't let you know which one you have or which results, CC, CA, right? Or AA. The problem with that is now you don't understand fully the mechanism of that gene. You know that it's a fat mass gene. You know that individuals that have the deleterious form of the gene are likely to have issues with carbohydrates, may have issues with insulin sensitivity, but you don't know if they have the strong form of the gene if they have the promoter form of the gene or if they have more than one form of the gene. So it's very important for you to know the RS number so that you're able to do some of that research on your own. In addition, bring me back to the report with the mechanism of action. We made sure to tell you if it was a problem, if they had more than one form of the gene. We made sure that you didn't have to be the geneticist, that the years we took to develop this program could be handed to you, and you just needed to fall asleep reading my book, right? At the end of the day, we've created countless tools. Actually, you can count them. I want to be really transparent about that. You can count them. If you go in your back office right now, they're all right there and you can count them. The idea, of course, is that our patients are presenting in multiple ways, and yet there may be a unique cluster of genes that have one person feeling like they're being pulled in all directions and another person feeling like they're losing their mind. It may be the same cluster of genes, but when we personalize that to the stressors that are in an individual's life, dietary, sleep, right, microbiotic, you fill in the blanks, that can give you a different expression of the gene. And that's why it is possible to present in so many different ways. And GeneSNP tells us where to put our weight, where to put our finger. And as a result of that, GeneSNP allows us to fully understand what supplements are going to be best for our patient, what bundle might be best for them, because genes cluster together. And as they cluster or network together, certain nutrients can change the way multiple genes behave. And that's what we call creating an optimal gene environment. It requires the proper foundation. So 100% of your patients can get started, whether they do GeneSNP or not, in the same place. Before genetic testing, I recommend that you heal the gut. Healing your gut may mean that without GeneSNP, you get your patients started on the Gut Guard bundle, where you're using things like astaxanthin and curcuminoids, in curcumin extreme. You're using things like Oxygen Extreme for healthy detoxification and the fiber supplement through nutraClean to kind of build up a better barrier in their gut, allow them to support a healthy gastrointestinal tone so that they support their energy, they support their brain, they support their overall metabolism. From there, we can identify unique factors in our patient, perhaps stress management, knowing that stress, lack of exercise, not diet alone, influence the way genes behave. This may be the next step for us to make sure that our patients are properly functioning. For many of our patients, they just want a better base, a better foundation. And for them, we may use something like the foundation bundle with omega-3 fatty acids, magnesium, antioxidants, and a multivitamin. At that point, then you can do genetic testing. The idea here is that you're going to have different patients that want to do or go about this a different way. I want you to know that there's options, because what we've created in the GeneSNP bundles are bundles that cover a lot of genes because of the way they network. So whether you're looking at the Gut Guard bundle, you're looking at a stress management bundle, or you're just simply looking at the foundation for a healthy genetic environment, we've got you covered with the bundles. It's that patient that wants to take it to another level to know what their hormones are doing from a genetic perspective. Is sleep the most important step they could take towards better health, or is exercise? Have they been going about it wrong in their dietary program? Do they want to add more fat or take away fat? The answer is in their genetic test. And that's the fun part of introducing personalized nutrition to the patient. They'll ask this question before they ask any others. Is there a specialized diet I can follow? At the end of the day, people do want to be told what to do. The fact that we are able to help them understand what to do based on their genetic blueprint and truly personalize it puts us in a very special place. Not just the agency to give them that information, but now we have a patient that is far more likely to be compliant with what we're discussing. So whether it's keto, paleo, intermittent fasting, they want to eat plant-based or go fully vegan, similarities are the major here, right? The minors, let's not play in the minors. The differences are minor compared to the similarities. At the end of the day, we know that lower net carbs and low glycemic impact eating produce healthy weight. Dietary composition can be low glycemic impact, whether it is a keto diet or it is a plant-based diet. What we understand is that we need to pay attention to functional foods, proteins, and fats to ensure that our patients are doing well. Composition of the plate, well, GeneSNP DNA analysis can help you figure that out. Now I want you to do me a favor. When you ask yourself, do I really want to go through the effort of learning GeneSNP and implementing it in my practice? Picture your most difficult weight loss case, the one that has tried everything. You've tried everything with them, and they've tried everything before they came to see you. They complain of joint pain, excess weight, low libido, lethargy, brain fog, you name it. And right now, you're just throwing darts, trying to find out what's going to be that tipping point for them. Perhaps the tipping point is in understanding the genomic environment and hormones. No one lost weight successfully without balanced hormones. And so by looking at adiponectin genes, by looking at leptin genes, by looking at ghrelin and sleep genes, looking at genes that help us understand how lipids are transported in the body or stored in the body. These are all ways that we can use GeneSNP to overcome our most difficult weight loss problems, right? What is the number one hormone disruptor? It's loss of sleep. And that is really where the rubber meets the road with this GeneSNP program, is that we chose a program that really put a lot of weight behind mental emotional SNPs, sleeping SNPs, methylation and detoxification SNPs. Are there more polymorphisms out there that could help add to this picture? Of course there are, right? We don't have every SNP that is licensed throughout testing protocols, but what we do have is an emphasis on gene interaction. We made sure to focus on a test that told you how cardiovascular and mental emotional SNPs converge on each other, how manipulating gene environment through manipulating gut biota or manipulating sleep could improve things like excess weight or inches or centimeters around the middle. Concerns that we have with stress hormones like cortisol. Maybe glutamine is the answer. Maybe something that manages adiponectin is the answer. The answer is in your GeneSNPs. And this is what's so powerful. It's the combination of these variants. And this is one of the things that sets GeneSNP DNA analysis apart, is that we're focusing on not one gene or a handful of genes, but the way multiple genes interact. We looked at gene environment, right? There are no simple pathways, and that's why we had to look at the complexity of a gene network. As I said earlier, the clinician is absolutely critical in contextualizing this for their patient. If you're having a hard time contextualizing it, you're in the right place, because we're going to do some of that today. How is this relevant to your practice? GeneSNP will help you understand how nutrients interact with each other, with the gene environment, and then external stressors like sleep, exercise, stress, to make sure that we design a personalized nutrition program, not just for the practice, but for the patient. It's understanding how internal and external signals come together through that gene environment that really make this program meaningful to you and your patient. So when we think about implementation, we have to ask the important question, the heavy hitters. Who is your best candidate? It's the individual that is willing to spend out of pocket for more information about their health and their longevity. How do we identify them when we meet them in practice? We may need to use different campaigns in the practice. Did you know campaigns? Do you have the coffee gene campaign? We may need to show them some articles, blogs. You may want to share blogs. Maybe put one on your own website about personalized nutrition and how it's meaningful for you and them. You always want to answer that question. What is in it for them? Better weight, right? Better night's sleep, better a better sense of joint comfort, well-being, physical fitness, right? What we want to do is identify what's in it for them so they say, I totally want to do this. You have to ask, how much am I going to charge for the GeneSNP test? Am I going to bundle it with other services that I already offer? You want to ask yourself, what does that program look like for me? If I decide how much I'm going to charge, I need to know how much time it's going to take to interpret this test and what interpreting the test looks like. Do I cluster book my GeneSNP on one day so that I am able to send in a lot at one time? I'm able to maximize my time by explaining GeneSNP just one time, having someone that works with me when we are live in a practice or virtual. What does that look like for us to make sure that we get the kit and sample collection to the patient and ultimately to the lab? So you have to ask the important question, who's going to help you launch your GeneSNP program? And this comes down to the big question I asked in the beginning. What does your wellness program look like? So we'll set up goals to begin with. Genetic results are a way to modify treatment. Give your patient a way to move the needle, but do so in a meaningful way, in a way that they feel like they are in control, right? We're going to make proactive recommendations based on their genetic polymorphisms. Just like we do with lab testing, we make decisions based on those lab outcomes or those lab biomarkers. What I want your patient to understand is that what we do in a blood draw, that is a picture of what's going on today or over 90 days, depending on what tests we're looking at. Your gene polymorphisms, however, they're with you for life. So what we have is one test, a test, don't guess solution that we then manipulate and can track by looking at other lab work. Again, it's a collection of data sets together or data points together that allow us to truly see which direction we're going to take our patients, including identifying at-risk populations. It is possible through GeneSNP to be able to identify a risk or a concern that you maybe weren't looking for in the past. Maybe a female of good physical fitness. And so you weren't really thinking about cardiovascular disease. But after identifying some of those polymorphisms in her gene test, in her gene analysis, you realize that that's something you need to pull off of the back burner and put on the front burner and talk to her about how things like polyphenols found in blue or purple fruits and vegetables can be very important for her. While she may not have demonstrated heart disease today, she needs to keep doing what she's doing to keep those genes behaving the way they're behaving and understand individual susceptibility. And this is the real, truly personalized part of GeneSNP, because it is identifying that individual that has not seen the results that they're looking for and finding out that maybe sleep, dietary composition, or physical fitness was the answer. Maybe mindfulness was the answer. They've been lowering their calories or going on an extreme diet when in fact sleep was going to be the solution for their mental emotional well-being. And that's the value of genetic testing. Taking a patient that would otherwise be compliant, doing what you tell them to do, and allow them to become adherent. Do it in spite of you, because they actually feel better. They make lifestyle changes, and GeneSNP, because it's personalized, allows you as a practitioner to take all 48 SNPs and make significant changes, right? Or take it bite-sized and make simple changes. As I love to say, no one is served by trying to take it 180 degrees the other direction. Small changes lead to huge rewards. And GeneSnip allows you to identify with precision where you're going to put the weight, the weight of, I want to say on the scales, or where you're going to really focus. I was going to try to come up with something absolutely fantastic and illustrative, and you can see how well that worked. Very good. Well, we're all real, right? The idea here is give them the 80% foundation. The goal is not to fix a SNP. There is no such thing as a supervillain or a superhero gene. Genes network together. It is a combination of gene expression, a combination of gene environment that really will make the difference in your patient's life. So don't make the mistake of treating just a SNP. You are going to have a lot of patients that come in that are going to want to know if they have the MTHFR gene, or if they have the COMT gene, or if they have the gluten sensitivity gene, or the lactose intolerance gene. They're going to want to know those things. And what we need to explain to them is that that's not how it works. That one gene does not dictate all of metabolism. But what GeneSnip can help us figure out is if you have multiple genes that are pushing health down the wrong pathway. It's gene environment, not one gene. Now, GeneSnip takes 6 to 10 weeks to turn around. The more you send in, the faster it comes back, which is why the lab is running their special for 3 for the price of 2, so that you can send in 3 SNPs, but only pay for 2 of the lab fees. This is a perfect time for us to be maximizing this for our patients and our practices. But we need to get our patients engaged. Not only do we need them to ask for the solution, we need to, while we're waiting for the gene polymorphism test to come back, we need to keep them engaged. I love to use email diet diaries. I like to give them overviews of immunity and genes so they get excited about what's going to be in their gene test. I want to also make sure that I'm engaging the patient over time. It's not enough to give them their results. We need to find streamlined ways to follow up with them, to make sure that they're staying engaged, that they are staying compliant, and newsletters that remind them of personalized nutrition and what they can be doing. That's a perfect way to bring them back into that fold. Bringing up, how do you dialogue? Your genes play a very important role in your health, I tell patients. Understanding how these genes interact with each other is critical to identifying what's going to help you reach your better self, your genetic potential, your weight loss goals, your sleep goals. Fill in the blank. It is, in fact, these genes interacting that can help us answer that question for you. I might say something like, what if you could have your own unique program to guide you to optimal health? By looking at your genetic blueprint, we can follow the stepping stones to your very best genetic you. If you don't know what to say, I suggest that you use some of the blog posts and articles that we've written as nutraMetrix to send these out to your patients so that they say, I didn't know that that even existed. I want to know more about that. You can send them to the GeneSnip.com. By looking at GeneSnip.com, they're going to be able to see how genes affect their health. They're going to be able to see all of the different polymorphisms for which we are able to test. In fact, as you work with colleagues, maybe GeneSnip isn't right for you, but it's something that makes you go, I know that my colleague would want to use this. You can send them to GeneSnip.com so that they can identify the different polymorphisms that we look at and a little bit more about how we dialogue about how the genes interact. One of my favorite things to do is that clinic I talked about. When I think about implementation, I try to do a TLS select or a GeneSnip overview. This way I'm leveraging my time in front of a group of people that may want to utilize GeneSnip. I don't have to have this discussion multiple times. I have it one time and I'm able to clinic or cluster book individuals for their genetic analysis. This is a fantastic solution to streamline GeneSNP in the practice, and here's why. Because when you send them into the laboratory, they all come back roughly at the same time. I know that sounds crazy, but because of the tool that we're going to look at, you're going to see how easy it is to get results just like that. But the best part here is that we've already set the patient up for that cluster or that GeneSNP clinic. So now, 6 weeks later, we know that they're going to come back for another clinic. Now you are able to block out your schedule and do a full day of GeneSNP reports if that's what makes sense to you, or working on them during that week and moving patients, but knowing that this is going to be your GeneSNP week. So we're going to plan for the future because we did a group overview. So that brings us to the worksheet. I hope many of you went to your back office and downloaded the prioritization sheet, the new select prioritization sheet. If you didn't, that's okay, because we're going to go over some of its moving parts. And after this, you can go there and take a look at it and play with it yourself. I do want you to know there's more than one way to interpret GeneSNP. You can just use the weight and wellness report that comes from the laboratory. You can utilize the GeneSNP bundle checkoff sheet. That's the one that you see here in the lower left-hand corner. And that will help you choose a bundle based on gene polymorphisms. You don't have to get any more techie than that. But if you want to go full interpretation and product recommendation, we have the product prioritization spreadsheet that we're going to go over together. And you could even look at printing off the report in a way that really works with your practice. Working with a practitioner, Dr. Brown, he prints them off, but he separates them into 8 weeks so that he can work with the patient on the most problematic or deleterious SNPs, and then move them into the supporting cast, and then move them into the longevity SNPs. He's just simply taken the report because he's learned the report and the avatars, and he's created a customizable, a personalized 8-week program for his patients. Today, we're going to talk about using the product prioritization sheet, but you need to know some of the moving parts. In using the GeneSNP analysis, you need to know that we created the report with Cliff Notes. So there are bullet points for you. I've given you some pro tips. This is great because when you give the report to the patient, they get to take home something and be like, that's right, that's what he said, that's what she said. We've given each one of the SNPs a unique name, like the brain aging gene, so that you can understand the avatar of this gene. And each one of the polymorphisms or results has its own badge or icon, or a handful of these, as you can see here: nutrient metabolism, cognitive health, and weight. BDNF has something to do with how you metabolize nutrients. In this case, things like omega-3 fatty acids, curcuminoids, and chlorogenic acid. That has an impact on cognitive health and brain aging. It also has an impact on your weight. And so you need to know that we've put all kinds of moving parts so that you can point to easy Cliff Note solutions when you go through the report with your patient. A couple of modifiers that we need to think about. Genes that are yellow are neutral. They're neither protective nor problematic, but if you apply enough pressure, don't get a good night's sleep, overly stressed, consume a lot of refined sugars, even yellow, neutral SNPs can start to behave like problematic SNPs. There are genes that are in the green zone. We call these gain genes or protective genes. They may, in fact, offset another negative variation. A great example of this is the CETP gene. If you have the cholesterol ester transferase protein gene, also known as the LIPE-C gene or hepatic lipase gene, you use free fatty acids a whole lot better than other individuals, which means you're less likely to have type 2 diabetes, right? You're less likely to suffer the inflammation from elevated free fatty acids, because you have a gene that protects you from that because it utilizes those free fatty acids so effectively. And then there are red polymorphisms. Red polymorphisms are the deleterious genes. These are the ones that we pay more attention to, in particular if they're homozygous. So what I want you to do when we go through this worksheet is you're going to get a lab test back or a lab report back. And it's going to tell you with the little blue heart the individual's results. Are they double homozygous CC? Are they homozygous or double homozygous GG? Do they have a green SNP? You can see there the actinin SNP. That's a protective fast twitch muscles, making them ready for jumping and protecting them from sarcopenia, right? And you can see the little blue heart over the AA. So we've got some examples of red, green, and yellow polymorphisms here. So you want to pull out all of the red SNPs. You may choose to print off those SNPs from the report. Let's show you exactly how you do that. This is what the report looks like in your back office when you download it, with all of its common names. And what I've chosen here are many of the red SNPs. Remember, we are going to print off potentially the red SNPs, but throw your patients a bone, right? When they do have a protective SNP, make sure that they see that protective SNP. Make sure that they know that there's something in their favor. That PPARD-GG, that is a fat burner gene. These people do really well with saturated fat. Why is that important for you? Because now when you've got that patient where you're very concerned about cardiovascular or cardiometabolic health, you know if you need to put a lot of weight behind sleep, exercise, or diet. GeneSNP gives you some insight there. So we're going to look at customizing the report through the prioritization sheet together. I do need you to understand some of its moving parts, not just the prioritization sheet, but what you're going to get if you print off the report. That there are ways to print it off by panel, by icon. That's the weight icon or the badge for cognitive health. You can do it based on chief complaint like lipids, sleep, overeating behavior, for example. You can print them off as I've recommended based on is the gene positive or negative. And then you can print off other polymorphisms that are related to that gene. I do want you to know that we've given you a lot of moving parts so that you and your patient know how to read the test. But let's get into this product prioritization sheet, right? Let's get past the sexy report and let's evaluate any of the genes and the way that they interact. The best tool to do this is the product prioritization sheet, right? In doing so, we need to ask these questions. When we go through the product prioritization sheet, it's going to tell us where the genes are more influential. So in reporting this to our patient, we need to ask these types of questions. Why do they want to do the test, right? Is this relevant to the personal or family history that they've given you? Limit your results to the top 5 concerns, right? Not just their top 5 concerns, the 5 concerns that GeneSNP revealed, and then maybe trim it by their top concerns. The point is to understand what I refer to as the disparities, is that they may have a family, they may not have a family history of type 2 diabetes, but have some diabetic SNPs, or they may have a family history of type 2 diabetes, right? They may have polymorphisms that tell us that they have blood sugar concerns, but they themselves do not. It means that they're keeping their genes in a healthy environment, or that something is more meaningful in the way that they're feeling today, right? And that's why we encourage them to just make some basic lifestyle changes. Poor sleep, right? We need to do something about screens at night. Let's do something about that. Mindful eating, mindful waking, cleaning up the cells. These are all the things that make it worthwhile to do GeneSNP. Now let's walk through the tool. You're going to use the GeneSNP sample report. You're going to take the sample report where you see the blue hearts, and we're going to put them into the GeneSNP prioritization tool. Now, you can manipulate many of the fields, but not all of the fields in this tool. You can see here that you can enter in the kit number if you want to. You can put the patient's name depending on how you protect your information. You may choose to have a unique code. I use unique codes, a portion of their name and a portion of the 11-digit alphanumeric code that is their test. This way, much like my bank identifies me through my social security number, the last 4 digits of my social security number, or depending on your fancy bank, they may ask for the 5 in the middle. Whatever your fancy bank does, you want to come up with your own fancy way of doing this. And then what you're going to do is simply put in the results from the lab report. You're going to import those into this functional sheet, and we'll do that together here in a minute. It needs to calculate at the bottom a 61 and a 48. Here's my pro tip. You need to, when you hit this very last BCOM gene and you put in the result, you need to make sure that you hit return. If you just put the 1 in, you're going to still see 60 and 47. Once you hit return, you should see 61 and 48. If you don't, you've made a mistake somewhere and you need to go up and see where you skipped. And then from there down, you're going to need to reinsert your values because you're likely off by 1. What's going to happen next is it's going to populate the bundle worksheet for you. That bundle worksheet for you is going to tell you whether or not you have a patient that is mostly the methylator bundle or having concerns with methylation. Maybe they are the gut guard bundle, and so they have concerns with immune dysfunction related to immune triggers in the gut. Maybe they are the restore bundle and they have issues with detoxification pathways. And we have to talk to them, not just about supplementation, but getting in some greens into their diet. You get the picture here that once you have filled out that product prioritization sheet, it's going to tell you which bundle they are by percentages down here. And so we see here that this individual is mostly the balance bundle. Now, the balance bundle, and you can appreciate this because of the value here at 62 versus 70. Many of these will overlap with the methylation bundle. And some of the commonalities are going to be things like B vitamins or magnesium. And so that's an important distinction here, is to look at where there are where there's more crossover with numbers like 62 or 70. Or maybe you run into situations like this where the highest number is 50 and they're both 50. Well, this is your hormone support versus your cardiovascular support. And we know that weight and hormones go hand in hand with cardiovascular decline. And so we know that there's going to be some commonalities like antioxidants in here. We know that there's going to be some commonalities in healthy food and even timing of food, right? But one of the things I want you to pay attention to is that all of these SNPs interact with each other. They form a network. And so often similar components of diet can influence more than one set of genes. So in this case, while this individual is mostly the balance bundle, mental, emotional well-being, we're going to see a great deal of crossover in the methylator bundle, meaning that we're going to be supporting multiple areas of health with this individual. What you should not do if you want to use the product prioritization sheet is just fill in the SNPs that you find most meaningful. We do run into some practitioners that only want the cardiovascular SNPs because that's their patient's number one complaint. The prioritization sheet won't work if you don't fill it out in its entirety. Once you have filled it out in its entirety, you can go ahead and disseminate it any way you want to. Just like Dr. Brown, you can break it into as many weeks as you want based on certain polymorphisms. But for the prioritization tool to work, you do need to fill it out in its entirety. One of the biggest benefits today of the new program is that we've added in a new spreadsheet that automatically populates, and it gives you lifestyle SNPs, including recommendations for dietary composition and types of exercise. And so this is a brand new part of the tool. If you've been using GeneSnip for any period of time, but haven't downloaded the new prioritization sheet, then you don't have the newest lifestyle SNPs on the 4th tab of this program. So what I'm going to do with you now is start sharing with you, right, this new tool. Before I do that, I want to see if we have any questions that have popped in to the chat box or to the Q&A. Okay, so let's keep going, and I'm going to bring up this powerful tool. And what you're going to see here is that I've started at the beginning, right? And I'm right up here at the FAME2 gene, and I have put in my patient's information. They had a 1, and they had the AG form of the FAME gene, the less problematic form of the gene, and that told me when I print off the report, I need to print off page 2. I went through and I filled in everything here for the purpose of this workshop. I didn't want to spend time filling it out and reading back and forth. That kind of tedious watching me do that. But you can see here that each one of them, once I fill them in, tells me what page I'm going to print off, customizing the report. Very, very easy. Now, what you're going to start to see is where genes are repeated in the test, because they are not just important for nutrient health, but also sleep or weight and well-being. What you're going to start to see is that I will put something in here, like the FTO609 gene. I still need to put in the result, even though this is a repeated SNP, but it won't have me print off an additional page. So that's the other thing that you need to know, is that it's never going to have you print off more than 48 SNPs. So you can break up your program any way you want to. 4 weeks, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks. Pair it with your weight management class, pair it with your anti-aging program, but that's what you're going to print off, right? So once I get down to the bottom, you're going to see that I've got a 61 and a 48. That means I filled it out correctly. I now go to my second tab, and it lets me know which bundle this patient is. A 62, a 66, a 72, 70, 50, 60, 60. Okay, my patient is a restore. They have trouble with detoxification. Now I know how to move the needle for them. I'm going to focus on things like curcumin. I'm going to focus maybe on dark green leafy vegetables. I'm going to focus on some of the broccoli and different things that I can add to their diet. Mustard seed. I want to start talking to them about not just more fiber, but more nutrient and detox rich foods. Maybe this changes them from using core for weight loss and starting to move into something like Oxygen Extreme or Hepatocleanse, right? Because I'm going to clean up the liver before I do anything else, right? This is going to give me the summary. Now, it's up to you if you want to share this with your patient. But here it tells me if they had a yellow form of the gene, a problematic form of the gene. And so this is a nice thing to show your patients, because they're like, okay, it's not all red. I mean, I got a lot of yellow, right? In this case, this patient didn't have a gain gene, so they didn't have any green to show off, right? So now what I'm going to do is, as a practitioner, I can evaluate how often did I see things like peak performance show up, right? How often did B vitamins, curcumin, or omegas show up, right? A lot. So now I'm finding that I am going to maybe recommend omegas over other things. Now, I want to be really clear. You don't have to add this up if you don't want to. The bundles we created, this tells you that for this detox, that you're going to give them the Restore bundle, and that's going to cover most of their bases based on the number of gene polymorphisms there. But you can also look here and make lifestyle recommendations from here. You can choose to give this to your patient or just give them the bundle worksheet. This is also in your back office that you can fill out for them. But this is the magic of this form. It's also going to populate if they should be following a low carb diet. This individual doesn't have a keto gene. So we know that they're going to do well with relatively low refined carbohydrates and may want to consider a low carb diet. They have all of the no grain genes. And so for this reason, we're going to make sure that they don't get grains. That doesn't mean they can't have vegetables or fruit. Putting them on a low carb diet, this may be the solution right there for their program. That their sure and steady weight management through TLS wasn't going to be the solution. They needed fat shredder or rapid results because those meal plans are grain free, right? Let us know if they have lactose issues, if they have real issues with reward centers or sugar or addiction. Lets us know if they have a predominant number of sleep genes. Again, a fantastic way to evaluate your patient's health is to say the most impactful thing you could do is cut out those grains and get a good night's sleep. It lets you know if they should be doing high intensity interval training, or in this case, do they need to be doing more yoga, more of the mindfulness and mindful breathing. In this case, they can drink alcohol. They just have that one gene that means that they don't detoxify the alcohol well, but otherwise do fine. Smoking will be a problem for them. Let's be honest, smoking's a problem for anybody, right? But what we get to see here is that while they have some gut health genes, that wasn't their bundle, right? Detox was their bundle. And it appears that getting a good night's sleep, just like getting their collard greens, is going to be a great way to attack their health. This is some of the magic that allows us to create a very special gene SNP program for them. And that's how we create the added customization contextualized by the physician, because consumers and patients already have a relationship with you as their primary care physician, their practitioner. They can trust your results and your recommendations, and we can go it slow or we can go fast. Practitioners additionally do not have to spend a ton of time on marketing or branding. And because we as their practitioner are some of the best advocates for their health, GeneSNP gives us the information that we need to give them the information that they need. You guys, this is my baby, and I love this. I hope to see you in an upcoming training. In fact, let me share with you quickly some upcoming trainings that you could look at. Of course, there is the GeneSNP program. Our new GeneSNP, the GeneSNP lab test, right? It's been extended. You can join me next weekend, and we will go over some new tools that we've created in nutraMetrix called the snippets. And this should make it easier for you to interpret and understand the gene avatars. And of course, if you want to go through an entire program, learning the GeneSNP test, GeneSNP protocols, GeneSNP implementation, pairing it with TLS Select, I hope that you will look at attending on May 2nd. That is a Saturday. It's an all-day event at GeneSNP 101 and a GeneSNP 201. You can go to the official Facebook page for nutraMetrix Healthcare Practitioners and find your registration links there. Let's go ahead and answer a few of the questions that have popped in. Okay. Thank you. No, I love this thing. So great. Thank you for spending time with me. I know Amanda says she can't wait for snippets. I totally agree. They're super sexy. Wonderful. Okay, you guys, thank you for spending your 2 o'clock to 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time with me. I hope to see you next Tuesday. Same thing, but we're going to do snippets next week. And then I hope many of you are going to join myself and Amanda Rigby, because she's one of my attendees for the GeneSNP 101-201, where we will do a deep dive into the GeneSNP report. Thank you, everyone, for spending time here.